We are here with production designer Nick Bassett, and he did the work on a little film that just came out called Evil Dead Rise. And yeah, Nick, how are you, man?
I'm good. Yeah, yeah. Actually, in the background, there's crazy sirens and things going. I have no idea what's happening, but yep. Thank you for
Well,
inviting me.
yeah, of course, of course. Can you give us just a brief idea of what the film is about?
The film is it sort of slots into a franchise of the Evil Dead franchise, which has been around since the 80s. It sort of doesn't tie in anywhere in particular. It's kind of its own movie. It's its own story. Takes place in LA in a time which is an undefined period. It's contemporary, but we made quite a deliberate effort to kind of keep it a little bit ambiguous as the exact year that it's taking place in. I think the most modern thing in it is this Uber and a couple of cell phones, and that's pretty much it. But we kept kind of a sort of a classic style on it. And yeah, it's a home invasion film, and it's gory and bloody and challenging. Yeah.
Love it, love it.
Mhm.
Okay, so just for our viewers, can you please explain what a production designer does on a film?
So, a production designer on a film would take the script, and I'll be specific to this film probably because I think everyone work a little different way. But we would work with this with what's on paper. If it's a film, you work very closely with the director, and I always try and make my own interpretation of the film and the vision of it first. So I'll always put my ideas in a folder and kind of collect those ideas together, and then we get into talking about the script with the director, and then hopefully at that point we've got common ground visually. So yeah, my role is really to create the environments that the story takes place in, essentially the backdrop for the film.
Now, does that include some of the set design, or does that include set dressing, or is it strictly just coming up with the visual aesthetic for
So,
the film?
yeah, so production design would be in all of the set design, putting the team together in a very much a team collaboration. The art department is the sum of many parts, and we take care of the set design, like essentially from very first sort of imagery, which we are inspired by, through to the set design, which is and the set builds and the choice of locations we would use. That we're very involved in that, and I'll try and lead as much of that as I can. And then set decorating, layering on the set decoration, and then also props and greens, and we work with special effects and everyone. We're sort of the conduit probably that holds a lot of the film together.
Mm. Now, were you a fan of the franchise before? Because you also worked on Ash versus Evil Dead, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I saw Evil Dead as a teenager. I think Evil Dead 2 came out in about 1987, and I was saw it at the movies and
Mhm.
remember it. I mean, I'm probably a movie fan for sure. Horror fan a little bit. I love the classic horror movies, love all those things. And then yeah, was and had met and knew. I mean, I really got onto this because of Rob Tappert. Rob Tappert was the producer and been a producer in New Zealand for years, and he invited me on to Ash versus Evil Dead, and I loved it. It's that comedy, pop culture, all of those things combined. So that was a sort of a real dream for me. And then yeah, so you might hear my dog in the background if you hear
Oh,
any
it's
weirdly.
fine. We like animals. That's cool.
It was awesome. And then yeah, and then I got kind of an intro into this one with Lee. Got to meet Lee over Zoom, and we got on well. And then yeah, I got offered this job. So yeah, I mean, I love that the franchise is something different. It definitely has its own personality, and it's a real draw card to me. Yeah.
So what from visually speaking,
Mm.
um, how is Evil Dead Rise similar to the other installments in the franchise? And also how does it differ?
It's an interesting question, actually. I mean, I think all the films have their own style. It's one thing I think there's a common theme, and there's a spirit to Evil Dead that is hard to define, but there is a spirit to it. A lot of that comes from the producers. I think the producers are very quietly in the background, very kind of instrumental in setting a tone for the film and understand what the franchise is. So all the films often they tend to be claustrophobic. That's one thing. I think Army of Darkness is the only one that kind of broke very much out of that. Even Ash versus Evil Dead, we were very tight into this, we kept it quite claustrophobic. We kept it quite focused. I feel like that definitely affects the visual style of the show.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, I think for this film, I think that we sort of harnessed a lot of those things and just tried to build our own world, but with kind of the backstory of what Evil Dead was, but keep adding our own kind of style to it. And I think, I mean, it's fair to say, without getting into nostalgia, because I think there's a lot of films which are nostalgic. This one, that when it was created in the 80s, that feeling of it does carry through, and I think that something I'm interested in, and was something interested in putting into the film, is a kind of a feeling of when you watch it, it has a feeling of something that happened maybe years ago, and a sort of um, a classic kind of feel to it. So that would be something I would say that I kind of try and work on as part
Mhm.
of the look of the film. Mm.
Excellent. Now, what I find so interesting with your job on, the film, is you have to take these relatively safe spaces and make them scary. It's so how do you do that? I mean, how do you heighten the fear in an average
Mm.
room?
I think it's interesting. I think everyone would probably have a different approach to that. Like my approach for this one was to Lee was always interested in claustrophobia, like as a thing, And I think when you think of the cabin in the woods, essentially you're trapped either in the woods and you're trapped into a cabin. Cabin had different layers, had a cellar, had a main living area, and it's kind of essentially isolation. So in this film, we took a building and we're in the city, but we're now going to isolate our actors and we're going to put them top of this building with no way down, and all of our backdrops, like our cityscape, is actually done on it's kind of a Roscoe is the company. It's a backdrop that we can backlight and this pushing the city way back. So it feels like we're in this. In one moment we're right in the city, and then when you're up in the apartment, it sort of feels like that city sort of steps back a little, and we're now quite a long way from civilization, and we're at the top of this building, and there's no way down. So everything was driving for that. Really, it was about not really wanting to know much about what's between the bottom floor and the top floor. That mystery, I think, really helped kind of create this idea of. But yeah, the less you kind of know what's around the corner, I think, in a horror, the better. Like if you know what's below you, it'll potentially give you some form of safety. In our version, there's this huge void. We have no idea if it's full of people or full of demons or whatever it is. So we do that, and then the spaces I definitely wanted them to have character. So we added the character, but there's a decay to the building, and there's a sort of an unsettling period of time. It's a deco building. It's kind of old. It's got these kind of renovations that were done. It's not very traditional layout. I don't think anyone would take any great comfort with the layout of that place, and there's no real outdoor living. It sort of lacks modern all those things we consider desirable in a modern house. I feel like we stripped them out. That was very deliberate. It's like I want it to feel like you're living in something that, like the family's there when the lights are on. It's all pretty friendly and it probably is quite atmospheric. But turn the lights off and suddenly you're in this old creaky building. All the walls we add is kind of a lot of underpainting. So our scenic artists, we work a lot together on the colors and the finishes, but in the corridor to the elevator, the main corridor, there's actually texture all under those walls. And then we lay a sort of a wallpaper, like a very thin paper over the top of that. So it's almost quite skin-like, which sounds kind of disturbing, but yeah, that was
Well,
the
that's the
idea that
point. I
it's
mean,
essentially there's a history to this building, and it's been covered over. And these kind of layers that really add something interesting, I think. And then the lights hitting that, and we try and just move the building so it's nothing's quite level as well. The floors are out, and it's kind of annoying to camera people in that because they always walk in and they go, "Why is the floor not level?" And it's the damn art department again trying to wrap the space a bit, and you just put window, so those things are to me they're the unsettling. We're not worried about like we're not worried about fashion with our decoration. It's almost anti-fashion, I think, this show. It's yeah, so we're just creating spaces that I think are going to be visually interesting, and then each in the apartment there's kind of a couple of themes that were probably not super obvious, but we use wallpaper in the bedrooms and the kitchen, and then Danny's room has this kind of bluey color, and then the corridor has a blue tone. And they were deliberately just to try to separate those two spaces. So I really wanted the apartment to sort of feel warm, kind of patinaed and lived in, and full of character. Danny's room's got this kind of cooler feel to it in this blue, and then out in the corridor has this much colder, more claustrophobic feel. And that was really just to make them slightly more foreboding, I guess, as spaces. And then there's kind of wallpapers everywhere else because we're in this kind of trapped in this urban building, we were like, let's bring a little bit of nature in. So all the bedrooms have kind of nature wallpaper, kind of dated wallpapers and things. So there are little subtle things that we're doing that are just might not be super obvious, but they were just trying to just give each space its own purpose and its own atmosphere, rather than just treat it as one apartment. It's kind of multiple rooms in one space. So they were very deliberate decisions, and as I say, the decorating and the kind of unsettling of the space, of slight art deco, slight kind of 70s, 80s upgrade. Those were, I find, I don't know why, but I find those kind of they make you go, I don't know, that they're unsettling, and to the average person, they help just put you on edge. I think that's
um,
my
yeah.
yeah.
So your tools were claustrophobia and um and
And
symmetry
yeah.
and color. You mentioned color. Um, and
Mm,
you talked about the one character's room being blue.
mm,
But then the hallway to the elevator with the skin walls being
mm,
being a different shade of blue.
yeah.
Was there a safe color, that meant, okay, we can just be okay for just a second, or
Yeah, I think
everything?
so. I think the safe colors are in the main in the corridor. Sorry, the hallway that leads out, and you'll see the little girl Cassie. She looks through the peephole.
Mhm.
That the sort of hallway behind her is really warm tones, kind of honeyish colors and patina color, warm tones. And then the apartment behind that is sort of a greeny color, which really was, I just thought green's good for blood. So red and green go great together, kind of complementary colors. So simplistically, and also I just wanted it to feel quite calm, really. So when we're in our normal life there, it's all kind of warm and calm, and then lights go out. Still got some luminance to it, so I didn't want to go too dark there.
Hmm.
And we go into the corridor, and it's almost like actually, I looked at a frame of it the other day, and it almost reminded me of being in a submarine or a dust boat kind of feel, like you're looking down this dark kind of foreboding space. We put flickering lights in there, so it just had a slightly even colder feel, and everything
Of
else is
course there were
candlelight.
flickering lights, of course.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna. That's the thing. It's there's techniques to horror that you'd be foolish to ignore if you're trying to unsettle an audience. But all of those color choices and things are we didn't. I definitely didn't want to end up with a monochromatic show. I don't feel like that's the spirit of Evil Dead for me. Like I think that there's this, again, if I go back to that kind of when the film was made, it's shot on film, things shot on film, there's a life to them, and there's we wanted all of that texture and all of that kind of feel of that era. That was without it getting nostalgic.
Mhm.
There's something about it that I think you can kind of soak into the backdrop, and it comes through. So yeah, that's kind of a personal taste thing for me, but something I really like to do. Yeah.
Do you have to design differently for things shot digitally as opposed to those shot on film?
I think there was probably a time where you did have to do that. I think nowadays we're using beautiful anamorphic lenses, and we're using the cameras we're using have essentially huge amount of information in them. No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you deal with everything. I mean, the test is, does it look good to your eye? And if it looks good to your eye, you're safe. There was probably once upon a time people considered certain techniques to be more forgiving, or I don't believe that is the case really. So no, I think the main thing is working with the director of photography, and working with the director and understanding the look you're going for, and really just working with the style you've set and the lenses you've chosen, and just going for the best looking image you can really go for. And horror allows you to do that. It's a very exciting medium to work in, and a very, because you want all those tricks that make great photography work really well in horror, I think. And it's essentially like a noir style filmmaking. The blacks you want really nice and inky, and you want dark corners, and you want to focus on the faces and all those things. So yeah, it's fun filmmaking, and I see people are drawn to horror for that exact reason, as filmmakers and as an audience. So we love watching it kind of play out, and as filmmakers we love making it. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
Mm.
So, I guess my last question is there going to be a sequel?
I can't answer whether there's going to be a sequel. I think the audience response probably would say that. I mean, Evil Dead has such a fan base, and I've been lucky to work on 30 episodes of Ash versus Evil Dead, and really understand that the fans are incredibly loyal to this franchise, and incredibly generous. I think, in terms of, they'll let something slide and go, "That wasn't the best," but and it's
Well,
so
it's true.
amazing, and
It's
I
true.
think. I think that all I would say the producers probably agree with that too. That they're super happy that people stick with it. But yeah, I mean, there will be. I'm certain there'll be more. And I'd really like to finish the TV series. To be honest, I think that would be. I think there's one more season in that. That would be a lot of fun to make, and personally, I'd love to do that. And yeah, I'd do another Evil Dead in a heartbeat. Yeah,
Excellent, excellent.
yeah.
Well, Nick, again, it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And best of luck on future possible sequels and other projects as well. Everyone, again, Evil Dead Rise is out right now. Nick Bassett, production designer, made it visually terrifying. So, Nick, thank you so much for your time.
That's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, bye.
Thanks.